This video was brought to you by Surfshark VPN. I love browsing the web, but most times the web does not love me. The amount of surveillance, limitation, and data mining that can happen on a daily basis is frankly depressing, and there's a lot of it too. It can overload your sensors like how Resbit hacks your visor in Metroid Prime 2. But with Surfshark VPN, you do have an easy one-for-all solution. On Windows, Android, or Apple products, whatever burns a hole in your wallet faster with a click of a button, Surfshark turns you into an anonymous and hard-to-track user, giving you more freedom on the internet, keeping you away from prying eyes, and prevents companies from doing things like geo-blocking, where video and streaming services limit your library simply because of where you live. Surfshark makes all of that a non-issue. You start up their service, you choose a location, refresh the page, and there you go, your favorite show that you couldn't watch because you dared to live somewhere else. The audacity of this viewer. Ooh boy. And those that use the link in the description below and enter the special code Johnny will not only get 83% off their initial order, but the next 3 months are also completely free. Once more, thanks to Surfshark VPN for the sponsor. Now let's continue on with the show. Return of Samus? Return of John. It's more like it, because, like I said, this video is more of a formality. I already covered Metroid 2 in just about every way available previously. For the AM2R video, I went and replayed the original and gave my updated thoughts there, and then I went into AM2R itself, and then a year later, I looked at the official remake, Samus Returns for the 3DS. However, when it comes down to it, there is no concrete versus video on Metroid 2 Return of Samus. But I figured since I'm going back to Metroid 2 once more, I might as well cover all the bases, starting with the 1992 Game Boy original. Once more developed by Nintendo R&D 1, Samus was going handheld after a successful debut on the NES. Metroid wasn't pulling in Mario or Zelda numbers, and spoiler warning, the series will never even get close, but over 2.5 million copies sold wasn't something to scoff at in the late 80s. Still, it was a couple of years between Metroid 1 and 2, so Samus Aran, while seen as a cool new addition to Nintendo's lineup, probably wasn't seen as a guaranteed blockbuster just yet. So to the Game Boy, Metroid went for the next adventure, a decision likely fronted by Nintendo R&D 1, seeing as they also created the device in the first place. Let's give this gray block some Metroid love. But it's funny because when I think of Metroid 2, I don't immediately think of the Game Boy per se, rather the Super Game Boy, the peripheral for the Super Nintendo that allowed you to play Game Boy games on the console, and in color to boot, so you no longer needed to concuss yourself like this dumbass here. Metroid 2 was the game showcased on the box art, despite the game not getting any enhancements, strangely enough. You know, Pokemon got those cool borders and expanded color palette, and Donkey Kong 94 got some updated sounds and that awesome arcade border. Metroid 2? Nothing outside what you can already do with the Super Game Boy options available. Speaking of, let's handle that real quick. I hate this default teal background on the Super Game Boy. I left it as is in the SGB review, not this time. So we're going to go to the options here, change that to black. That's it. Everything else is cool. Now it looks like we're delving into some sinister caverns here, and I do apologize for those watching this on mobile devices. I was debating whether I should just zoom in on the screen, but I didn't want to ruin the Super Game Boy vibe. You gotta have that obnoxious gray border, and I didn't feel like using the other borders. It's my video, I make the rules. After successfully thwarting the space pirate operation on planet Zebes, the Galactic Federation deemed that the Metroids were too dangerous to be left unchecked, so it was decided to wipe them off the face of their homeworld, planet SR-388. Originally, the Federation sent a bunch of their own soldiers to handle the task, probably using Samus's previous venture to learn how to take them out. You freeze them, then you blast them, easy as pie. But the soldiers would soon go MIA, prompting the Federation to once again hire Samus Aran to do the job. Those soldiers are long dead for the record. In the Game Boy original, you didn't even find any semblance of corpses, just a bunch of local wildlife. Rest in pieces, good sirs. But not long into Samus's expedition into the planet's caverns, you learn why these guys probably died. Those Metroids, they're beginning to evolve. And wouldn't you know it, these suckers are now immune to freezing and can only be taken down with concussive force, so either the Federation has potatoes for missiles, or they just don't compare to Samus's arsenal. I'm willing to bet it's the latter. That's the gist of Metroid 2 though, Samus traveling deep within planet SR-388 and wiping out every Metroid remaining until she takes out the Queen Metroid at the end, and takes the last remaining baby Metroid for herself after seeing it view Samus as her mother. Life moves in mysterious ways and all that. And I know I harp on this bit every time, but it is amazing that Samus can pull off such a feat all by herself. The planet doesn't look that small, so either all the Metroids are luckily condensed into one region, or Samus is literally traveling across the whole planet to finish the job, which I just don't buy. Nah, she had to miss a Metroid or two somewhere on this godforsaken rock, but I digress. so I haven't touched this version since I replayed it for AM2R about 4 years ago. The original Metroid 2 isn't anywhere close to being one of my favorites in the series, despite having some legitimate improvements over the NES game. I love Samus's new sprite work in this. For the Game Boy, this was considered incredibly detailed. The chicken walk is gone, she's more realistically proportioned, no more protruding 2 pixels of ass here. And because this game was originally black and white, this was the game that gave her the iconic shoulder pads when getting the Various suit, to signify the upgraded armor. You could fit a week's worth of lunches in there, they're so goddamn large, but this is the Various suit design I know and love, and we have Metroid 2 to thank for that. The sprite is a little too large for my liking. I think it would have helped if Samus was just a bit smaller. And I'm not talking Mario and Super Mario Land small, which coincidentally was also another game developed by Nintendo R&D 1. You think if you beat the game fast enough there, you get Mario in a 2-piece?
I'm going to fly for you.
Anyway, it's easy to collide with enemies and other obstacles when you're taking up this much legroom, and invincibility frames are next to nothing in this game. Damage can add up fast if you're not careful, and there's a degree of knockback as well, which can throw you off balance and lead to more pot shots. It's damn annoying. But you can do a whole bunch of damage boosts from midair whenever you take damage. If you don't care about your health, who the hell needs the high jump? Samus starts off better here compared to Metroid 1. Her health pool is still small, but she has 30 missiles, giving her more firepower for protection. And it isn't long before you start finding those energy tanks to acquire more health anyway. She also has the Morph Ball immediately, so that helps cut down on time. And compared to the NES game, Samus can crouch down now and take out grounded targets easier with her gun, and she can now aim straight down. Diagonal aiming, though, still not a thing here, strangely. Did R&D 1 ever play Contra? What's happening here? Thankfully, this is the last game to forgo this feature, so that's good at least. There's also more beam weapons on top of the returning ice and wave beams. Metroid 2 brought us the Spazer beam. Triple the lasers, triple the fun. It's a very wide shot, it's great. And there's also the plasma beam. It's a skinny little projectile, but its raw power is unmatched. I tend to switch between plasma and Spazer because they have their ups and downs, but they both surpass the ice and especially the wave beam in usability. And yeah, I said switching because once more beams don't stack, so it's one or the other. And by the end of the game, the ice beam is essential again because you have to take down original Metroids. But this game is generous enough to give you another ice beam pickup right before the final stretch. Energy and missile refill stations are also a thing now. Instantly refill your health and ammunition whenever you come across these and breathe easier because grinding is now a thing of the past. Towards the end of the game, they were a little harder to come by, and if you got some bad luck on some of the tougher Metroid evolutions like with Zetas or Omega Metroids, you might find yourself starving for missiles and backtracking a whole bunch because they're placed farther and farther apart. And missiles are the only things that can harm Metroids here, so you need those missiles. And as for mobility, this was the game to introduce the Spider Ball. With this, Samus can cling onto walls and reach heights she couldn't otherwise, traveling at a pace I could only describe as slow as balls, or ball. In the original game it had novelty, but it's quickly brushed aside once you get the high jump boots and the new space jump. Forget your basic double jumps and shit, this lets Samus jump continuously as many times as she wants as long as you got the rhythm down, or until the game says, nah, that's enough, the latter most definitely happening more times than necessary. Look, this is a cool addition to the series, but it's so fucking finicky at times. I don't understand why the space jump just craps out when it does. Falling down long stretches is so draining. I love the new Spring Ball though, it lets Samus jump in Morph Ball mode, meaning you don't have to rely on bombs for ground and propulsion. A seriously fantastic upgrade that just needs to be in every Metroid from this point onward. Sometimes it's the smallest thing that has the largest impact. Samus has it good here, but this is a game that doesn't do much with it in the end. Metroid 2 is a very straightforward adventure. You're just here to kill Metroids until that number reaches 0, and you're limited to where you can travel because this hazardous lava prevents you from going any further until you reach a specific Metroid quota. Now this has its benefits. This makes it harder for the player to get overwhelmed if that was an issue they had with the NES game. I don't blame them. Metroid 2 feeds the player in piecemeal. And if we're talking the classic Metroidvania experience of getting stronger by finding more things, Metroid 2 still accomplishes that rather well, but it gets repetitive in no time flat. The Metroids are the only real threat of this game, and you're hunting close to 40 of these things. Sure, they evolve into stronger beings to give added challenge. You got your puny alphas, your chunky gammas, your devilish zetas, and the omegas with the cute little leg paddling. What the fuck is that about? But that's all this game offers. And between every encounter, you have some world design that is certainly more varied than visual design, but as before, it is also incredibly guilty of copy and paste structure. And combined with a smaller screen, no map, and not to mention some of the world's slowest means of progression in this game's opening hours, so I tell you, traveling up these walls and ceilings with the Spider Ball is just peak adventuring, ladies and gentlemen. And I just love how using bombs cancels the whole thing, making me fall on my ass when I didn't want to. Love that shit. No, I don't. Metroid 2 is easy to pick up and play, and I managed to finish it in about 2 hours after years of not touching it. But it can be boring and unremarkable. I'm not big on the world design, it lacks a good soundtrack, leaning more on atmosphere this go around. which I don't think it manages to pull off well consistently given the system's limitations. Most of it just comes off as minuscule beeps and boops. It does work sometimes though, my favorites being towards the end game, when the music suddenly jolts and the Metroid counter jumps from 1 to 9, that's a good scare. The final hallway before the Queen Metroid encounter is aces too. It's just a repeated note, but you hear it and you know shit's about to go down. This is something I think you play once if you're interested in checking out Samus's resume, but you don't have to touch it again afterwards, especially since we have the remake now. Both of them in this case. Okay, so with that said, AM2R. I know it's been legally taken down by Nintendo, but I'll just say it took me less than a minute to find a download link with a simple Google search. Now I did that because I heard under the table this game was getting updates and modifications. Ooh, you sneaky devils you. But I don't think creator Milton Gossi had anything to do with that. I don't think he would take the risk. Now that he has his foot in the door in official game design, and good for him, you know, that dude is now creating games and making legitimate money for once. Good shit, man, congratulations. Now I think the updates are just passionate fans continuing his work, I suppose. It's basic things like bug fixes and such, some added scan logs for lore building, and also a randomizer mode, which I didn't bother with. That's not really my thing with Metroid specifically. But let's see, as of version, 1.5.5, there's also this new fusion mode where everything hurts and I hate it. Samus is so fucking fragile here, and I know that was a thing in Metroid Fusion, we'll get there, but I'm getting fucking demolished by the first few Alpha Metroids. Shit sucks. I don't see myself conquering this mode anytime soon. I'll tell you that now. I am more than happy with just playing the main campaign, and admittedly it has been a bit since I played AM2R, mainly because I've just been playing other things, but it's just as good as I remembered, and there isn't much I can say differently now that I haven't already said in the original review. So this is one of those cases where I'll save you time just linking to my previous review with the card up top. Most of my notes I left from my editor are just timestamps of me getting specific items for the sake of footage. A sign of laziness, or am I tricking you into clicking more on my videos so that I slowly consume your recommendation feed? This is a great fucking recreation of Metroid 2. All the bells and whistles from future games with fluid controls, great sound design, and a cool updated soundtrack. I know it's unofficial, but I don't give a fuck. This shit's an amazing Metroid game. If a little on the challenging side at times, but that's what different difficulties are for, you know? As for the official remake of Metroid 2, Samus Returns, this is one I was really looking forward to revisiting ever since it was confirmed that Mercury Steam, the ones in charge of this, was coming back to develop Metroid Dread. God, I can't wait. God, I hope it's good. This 2.5D take on Samus's voyage into SR388 is one I remember enjoying on its own merits, but having issues with some structural design. After going back for this video, I can say it's better than I remembered, but the low points are a little more obvious. It is absurd how much damage you take in this game, even after getting suit upgrades in the lightning armor. You don't get as many energy tanks in this compared to other games, that's one thing. The standard enemies also being super fucking aggressive is another, but fucking Metroid are slapping me around and the new boss fights are taking me out in just 4 to 5 hits and I'm like, what the fuck? And what's Diggernauts deal anyway? He takes my shit without asking, he tries to kill me multiple times beforehand in these do-or-die auto-scrollers. I am glad Samus ruptures his fucking face and without so much as batting an eye, you go Samus. I've gotten better with the melee counter, and despite it being a pace-breaking crutch at times, there is nothing more satisfying in this game than timing it exactly right with the Metroid and laying on the extra damage and a cinematic finisher. That's so damn good. Everything about Area 3 though can eat shit. It is super bland visually, it has the most Metroids to kill, a few being these gammas that like to run away into different rooms and just waste a bunch of fucking time. There isn't many upgrades to find around these parts. Christ, this was painful to revisit. The lowest of low points in Samus Returns, next to the incredibly lame space jump animation, or lack thereof. Gladly, everything else was damn solid. The graphics have held up well, the upgraded visuals and sound design are seriously great, and looking back, it's clear that Mercury Steam loved the Prime series. And even today, I still get giddy when I hear the item pickup jingle and music cues from Prime. It just works in this game, it really does. I struggled a bit having to use the touchscreen for item switching, and I don't like how the Ice Beam is a separate weapon in this. I think Mercury Steam was paying a little too much respect to Prime in that regard. I'd rather every weapon just stack like before. But the control is super tight and responsive, the map being on the bottom screen, accessible at all times, makes exploration streamlined and fun, and I fucking adore the 360-degree aiming. The precision you can get with it is second to none, and I love that they're bringing it back for Dread. I think the biggest issue I have going back to Samus Returns is that it's just a little too long for a 2D Metroid game. Maybe Metroid period, I don't know, like I expect the Prime games to be a little longer, but 2D Metroids are games I expect to finish on my first run in about 4 to 5 hours, and even though this revisit was a couple hours faster than my original review, it still felt a little exhausting, and while I would like to place the blame entirely on Area 3 because I can be that petty, I just think Samus Returns is a little bloated across the board. It takes longer to kill Metroids, it takes longer to travel across SR388. Ironic, considering you got these really nifty teleportation modules to cut down on backtracking, which are great. I don't want to take that away from this game. It's just, even with those, I felt areas could have done with fewer rooms and nothing much would be lost. I don't know, it's odd when you're going through a new puzzle or room and the reward is immediately missile pack. You can't even get every item without getting the baby Metroid near the end of the game because of these crystal things only the baby can destroy, and that's just damn silly and stupid design. But holy fuck, can we talk about the end game now? I deliberately didn't spoil it in my original review because it was new then, I didn't want to ruin the surprise. But now that we're a few years removed from it, hot damn, the last boss against Ridley is so fucking incredible. I know it comes out of nowhere, and that's why to some it doesn't really fit, and that's fair, part of me even agrees with that. Sort of retroactively diminishes his return in Super Metroid. But this is the best Ridley fight in the series. I mean it's better than Meta Ridley and Prime, better than Other M. This shit rocks. It's super intense, requires just the right amount of reflexes and dexterity, with nothing being unfair I find, and how the baby Metroid occasionally steps in and gives you health for the next phase, and how Ridley just continuously adds more and more shit for you to deal with, all while remaining balanced. If every boss in the upcoming Dread is like this, we're in good fucking hands. Major kudos to Mercury's team for managing to pull this off. It's such a good bridge between Metroid 2 and Super, and I love how Ridley still has these pieces of this robotic meta design from Prime, which I think is like the first time ever the mainline series and Prime have officially closed the gap. Yeah, that shit's cool. This encounter alone, endgame or otherwise, increases the game's value for me. The best thing about Samus Returns easily. Oh, I can't wait for Dread. I can't wait for Dread. Yes, I would play AM2R over this at the end of the day, and it sucks that AM2R is sort of that awkward elephant in the room whenever discussion of Samus Returns is brought up, but Samus Returns is still a great Metroid 2 remake in its own way, and one I think proves that Mercury's team has the chops to make a truly excellent Metroid title, one I think Dread has the potential to pull off. If I had to choose which one I'd tell you to buy, well, that's just it. You're officially supporting the Metroid series when purchasing Samus Returns. So since I want to see more Metroid games in the eventual future, I'm gonna fucking tell you to buy Samus Returns, and I'm sure Milton Gossi, the creator of AM2R, would agree on that. But as a Metroid fan, AM2R is also very much worth your time. It's such a stellar recreation of what was originally an unremarkable adventure. If you are gonna play AM2R, please balance the scales by purchasing Samus Returns as well. Even if you never play it, support the official release so that we get more Metroid. I think that's a fair compromise, yeah? And don't bother with those amiibos either. What did I tell you? Look at that. Ridiculous. You're better off buying those NFC cards. But I think I can live the rest of my life without ever having to make another Metroid 2 related video for this channel. And I do apologize if it seems like I was skimming over things. It's just, I already talked about this game multiple times. I'm really just making this for the Versus playlist to make it a little more complete, a little more nice and tidy. But next time there will be no such excuse because I'm diving into Super Metroid next. It's one of my favorite games of all time, so it looks like we got another predictable video on the horizon, but it's not just about how well the game holds up, it's also sharing my experiences with it as a dude close to his mid-30s and as a child growing up. But I'll catch you guys next time. As always, thank you all for watching. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask if you decide to go outside, get vaccinated if possible. Thank you all for watching and take care. This was a really long runoff, like just one shot, and forgive me if I fucked up the ending there, but it happens. At least my editor will be happy about it. I think, I don't know.